Welcome to KLEAN Radio, helping to navigate the journey of recovery by removing the stigma and offering a choice for a new life. With your host, Pat O'Brien.
Radio and television personality. We know him from the World Series, the Super Bowl, NBA Finals, Final Four, U.S. Open. A legend.
And distinguished clinical expert, Andrew Spanswick.
Andrew Spanswick is with me, and there's a reason, because he knows everything and I don't.
I'm Robert Shapiro.
I'm Jack Osborne. You're listening to KLEAN Radio.
I think you're pretty cool, Andrew. Thank you. I like your vibes. And listen, if I was getting loaded, I totally would come to your treatment center.
KLEAN Radio is presented in part by Pure Simple Juice. Taste the best of what nature has to offer. PureSimpleJuice.com. Addiction is in your backyard. You can join the conversation right now.
And hi, everybody. I'm Pat O'Brien. Happy Father's Day to all you out there. Welcome to KLEAN Radio for a Sunday night Father's Day evening. And we welcome everybody. Andrew Spanswick is here as well. And Andrew, how are you?
Good. How are you doing, Pat?
I'm very good. Couldn't be better. Had an expensive lunch with my kid today.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, it's a little much, by the way, but that's okay. It's Father's Day, and don't say Happy Father's Day to me. I'm privileged to be a dad. I'm grateful to be alive and to be a dad and a sober dad. We're on all over we're on everywhere, basically. But let's give a shout out to New York. We're on at WOR in New York City, so at the Mighty 710. KLEANRadio.com, as I said. Facebook.com/KLEAN. I hate the internet. I was hacked this week, and they got everything. My emails. I couldn't even call anybody in the office because I had no phone numbers.
Yeah.
Some moron got my. We actually ended up hacking him, and it was a.
That's a felony, Pat.
Back.
You don't want to say that.
I don't care. The guy had a Russian email address.
Well, probably not to a Russian. It's probably not a felony.
Come on now. Okay. What's wrong with you?
I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's like a 10% turn-in fee or.
I'm at. It's okay. It's a minor problem.
Okay.
I'm at POB Pat O'Brien. Andrew's at KLEAN CEO.
Yep. And the new announcement.
You want to make it now?
I think you should. I
have debuted a Twitter address, and it's at KLEANPOB.
Yay, finally.
Yeah, I have 4 followers. So if you can get on there now, at
he's
KLEAN.
nabbing my style.
Yeah, I did, actually.
He nabbed my style.
Well, listen, Dave Clark 5 nabbed the Beatles style.
That's true.
They did okay.
Yeah.
And our first guest nabbed Sid Vicious, right?
Yeah, a little bit of everything.
Right? We'll get to Jack Grisham in a minute from the punk band at TSOL. They have about 50 million albums out, but we'll get to that in a minute. And then our call-in number is 800-222-5222. It's like calling a New York taxi, 800-222-5222. See how Jack got that joke. And then our most important number is 888-601-6040. 888-601-6040. And the most important number is 24. 24 hours is the world record of staying sober. The whole country is talking about and praying for the people of South Carolina today. And I don't know how to describe it. It's just another mass murder in this country. A guy whose name I don't think we should give him any more publicity. But what do you make of this, Andrew? Everybody's kind of wondering if the guy was, just completely mentally ill, and I would have to think to kill 9 people in cold blood in a church, or just too many guns. I don't want to get into the gun control thing. But your thoughts on this thing? I mean, it's just dominated the news.
Yeah, to me, it just seems like a hate crime, and that takes quite a bit of illness to be that hateful towards people. So, whether it's mental illness in this case or just a straight horrible crime, either way, I don't think anybody's winning. So
yeah, I mean to load, reload, and murder unarmed people. And people say it's not a mental problem, but good Lord.
Yeah, I really like the Jon Stewart piece that came out this week.
Oh, he was so great.
He was very eloquent about pointing out that more people are being terrorized and killed by people that are mentally ill with guns and craziness and all this stuff going around in our own country than terrorists.
Right, and yet we're fighting ISIS.
Yeah, we should.
Pointed out.
If we could spend one of those bombs would pay for mental health for a whole year.
Exactly.
For the whole country. It's just crazy.
Actually, Rand, can we put that on our website, the Jon Stewart thing? And we will. And our general manager, Rand Stewart, Rand DeWitt, the GM here.
Right.
Our first guest is. Does it give you a headache, Jack? When you hear
Yeah,
that?
it gives me a headache. Yeah, don't listen to it.
Well, he's deaf in left ear still, so.
Yeah, it's gone.
Is that in my mind?
Oh, I don't know what they're.
That's in my mind.
I'm in my head. It's
in my head.
Yeah.
Mind.
I listen to Barry White. I don't fool around with this
Oh,
stuff.
you Jack. Come on, get in my head, baby.
That's right, baby. That's right. Nobody ever got it on listening to crap like this. You know what I'm saying?
I love punk rock, and do we still call it punk rock or just now?
Yeah.
Is it
That was
punk
hardcore
indie?
then, wasn't it?
Yeah, that
Well, it was
back.
before hardcore. Yeah, before punk rock.
hardcore,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then later on hardcore. Hardcore was just for like XXX films. It was hardcore. And then they moved that into punk rock. So
I have a Sid Vicious T-shirt that I can't even wear at home. It's so awful. Yeah. and by the way, I live alone.
Hey, the best song I ever wrote, the most successful song I ever wrote, they still can't play it on the radio, and it's been 30-something years since.
Didn't you and Jack Johnson write that together? That's an inside joke. Anyway, Jack Grisham is here. We're glad he is. And Jack, man, you've been through it. Surrounded by addiction and death your whole life. And you yourself, and you're now sober 1989.
A little over 26 years.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah, and I like, there was one thing I just wanted to say. You guys
I hate to get
mentioned
right
that.
into all that. Sure.
No, it's okay that the South Carolina incident. I thought the most interesting thing is that the church moved directly to forgiveness.
Absolutely.
Which is really focusing on that. There's an actual recovery principle. It's resist not evil. And it's why they put no power into the 6th or 7th step, into the character defects. They acknowledge it, they acknowledge what happened, and then they give it no force and they move on. It's interesting. Same thing Gandhi used in India. It's
that church
interesting.
has survived for years, right? Like the history of that church has been amazing to hear.
They survived the slavery.
People have been shooting at them for years. I mean, it's like,
straight civil disobedience. Right. You will do this, however, we will do this.
Yeah,
and they just turn it away and give no power whatsoever to the act.
Well, and the whole point of step 6 and 7, in case you're not in the recovery part, is letting go. I mean, that step 6 is all about, or that part of the recovery is all about letting go of everything.
Right. Acknowledge, move on. Acknowledge, move on.
At the same point, I think John Stewart was right. You live in a town where all the Confederate generals are on the roads, the main roads are named after them.
The church is on Calhoun Road.
Right, and they have, they're still flying the Confederate flag. It's just like, how long do we put up with this sort of like ridiculous?
Well, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
So Jack Grisham's our guest, TSOL, True Sounds of Liberty. We were an anarchist once, right?
Still.
Are you really?
But we're not responsible enough to be anarchists. That's why I tell people, hey, anarchy's a great thing.
You have to have a heavy shoulder of responsibility.
Yeah, you got to wipe your own ass if you're going to be an anarchist. Right. That's the deal, because nobody's going to do it for you.
I remember when John Lennon said, "There is no revolution." I said, "What?" Well, after all this?
Well, that's it. I love that's why I love the program so much because there was nobody in charge. I'm like looking for somebody to fight. And they go, "Oh, it's all you, man. It's all you. You want to fight somebody? Look in a mirror."
And that's why you were self-destructive with drugs.
Yeah. Well, that's just it. Yeah. I define myself. I say something and I challenge my own words. So.
It's kind of the old story, right, Andrew? Punk rocker in a band, sex, drugs, rock and roll. But
certainly for the current generation, yeah.
We love having people on that have actually gone through it. I did, and survived it, and that's the kind of purpose of the show. Is we like to tell people it's a better life.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people that become addicts have angers with issue and rebellion and traumatic childhood, and I think punk rock and hardcore and that kind of stuff was one of the genres of music that really spoke to people like that, honestly, and it was a genre of music that really opened up a lot of communication, I think, and it gave people an outlet that you don't really see now with just people sublimating everything into weird sexual videos. I mean, I don't know what that does for everybody.
Well, more importantly,
it was like a message with that music.
More importantly, Jack, it gave you an outlet, right?
I guess. I mean, I just didn't being a drunk, being like self-centered, selfish to the core.
Which is all opportunity.
Right. I put it wasn't like I was thinking about what's going on. It's like, I was protesting, but really, I mean, I lived at my parents' house. You know what I'm saying? It's
well, Jesus Christ lived at home for a while.
Yeah, well, of course he did. Yeah, it's like, I used to laugh at the Rage Against the Machine guys. They're talking about oppression.
Tommy,
it's like,
went to Harvard,
what, the gardener fire up the mower too early? What was going on, guys? I mean, so I was so wrapped. I was just doing it. It wasn't until I looked back later and said, oh, okay, maybe.
I was so self-absorbed at that time when I was drinking, when I was really into it, that I thought the guy in front of me was following me. I just like, why is this guy following me?
I like that line by Doug Stanhope, who talks about his lazy friend who was sitting on the couch complaining about the French, and he goes, and how they didn't fight in World War II, and he goes, We weren't there either, guy.
Who knows? Who knows? Whatever.
Let's switch gears for a second and talk about, because you've had just a lot of ex-wives and relatives and people die around you as well.
A lot of it. Yeah.
Why? I mean, I know why.
It's a fatal illness.
I know why.
I try to, they always talk about trying to convince people of that. That's the real issue. I was down in Texas one time, and I heard this guy say, he said that alcoholism or addiction's the only disease that has to be self-diagnosed before you can get treatment. Like, you can tell me I got a problem all you want, but it's not until I look in the mirror and say, hey, man, you're in trouble.
All right, we're the only people who don't admit we have that disease.
Exactly.
Until it's too late.
And what's interesting, I was sober for a year and a half before I really realized I had a problem. And it wasn't, I was sober then, but what I didn't realize is that I was going to go again. And you couldn't help me. I realized the mental illness of it. I realized, hey, you're dealing with a mental illness, and you're going to walk into one of these meetings one day and say, I don't need these people, don't need you, and I'm out of here. And then all of a sudden, it was like I just saw it. It was crazy. I just looked back my whole life and said, look at all the times you have done this, and you're getting ready to do it again, and there's no help. It was terrifying.
And by the way, if you think you need help, 888-601-6040, that's our Clean Center hotline. Andrew, this is one of the things that, as an addiction specialist, your whole life you've been dealing with this, and we try to tell people. We try to tell people that you got. I tell them when I'm doing a group out there or something. I say, listen, you've got to not like what you're doing enough to do something about it.
Right.
And the problem with me is I didn't not like it enough. I didn't do anything about it. But we tell people, you got to get our next guest, Cris Fiore, is going to talk about that. But anyway, I mean, you have to get a program of doing it for yourself.
I don't always like to be that extreme. I mean, there's different reasons that different people get sober and different people address mental health issues. And sometimes it's coercive and sometimes it's completely voluntary. Sometimes people are lucky enough to figure out what's going on, even under a coercive environment, when they might not have wanted to get help at first. Sometimes the clarity of just going through detox and getting sober and then maybe being on the right medications if they have a mood disorder or something can make a huge difference. But either way, there's a lot of hope. And I think certainly the direct hope of family, friends, and the thought that oneself can help oneself is a very important concept. And unfortunately, it doesn't work for all. And we can see that by all the unfortunate overdoses and deaths, because this is a serious problem, illness. So I think it's important that we get the message out there, and we get the message out there that if people are having a problem, they can get help before they bottom out. It doesn't have to happen right at the end.
This is Clean Radio, where you can get help every Sunday night at this hour, live, when we're live. And Jack, stick around for a minute. I want to bring in Cris Fiore, who's calling in from, you in Philadelphia today, Cris?
Just outside Philadelphia, Pat, about 30 miles northeast in Bucks County.
All right. Well, welcome to the show. There's Jack Grisham is here, and he says that he's still an anarchist, but if you have any thoughts about that.
Yeah.
And Andrew Spanswick, of course. Kind of hate to go right into this, but your son died of heroin at the age of an overdose at 24. God, what's Father's Day like for you?
Well, fortunately, I have another son, Nick, who's 18, just graduated from high school. But it's a sad time because Anthony's not with us anymore.
Well, and the whole thing, Andrew and I were just talking about, and by the way, I love your efforts and your passion to do something about all this. But I mean, the Anthony's Act, which you are behind, is what we were just talking about. That treatment it can't just be 30 days, and that's what the Affordable Care Act does. And you want to expand it to 90, right, or minimum 90?
Correct. Yes.
Actually, the Affordable Care Act doesn't even guarantee 30 days.
Doesn't?
No. There's a parity act that's supposed to say that if you have over 50 employees, you have to have matching health care for mental health, is same as physical health. The Parity Act, the Affordable Care Act and Obamacare is really about insurance reform. And within there is a possibility, and I think this is really what the Anthony's Act is really going after. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Cris, it's trying to actually insert mandatory treatment into all insurance policies, and that's an important distinction because a lot of people we're already seeing this with insurance companies. They're gaming the system against treatment providers by creating huge deductibles. So even if you have 30 days of treatment under your insurance policy, then all of a sudden there's a $10,000 deductible, making it prohibitive for you to go into care. So there's barriers for entry going up as quickly as the opportunity for treatment comes in.
And Cris, you've had tremendous support. I'll let you talk now. You've had tremendous support around the country. Thousands of arms, parents. That's 2 each, so hundreds of thousands of arms around you on this. Did you expect this kind of reaction from people in honor of your son?
Actually, I did, Pat, because not so much in honor of Anthony, but because one of the shocking things in the first week while we were preparing for Anthony's funeral was all the people who would stop by, call, and say, I have a son, a cousin, a nephew, a neighbor. I know somebody in addiction, or I know somebody that's been in rehab 2, 3, 4, 5 times.
Right.
And they're still, they're still addicted. So
and broke.
And I knew that there was a need for radical reform of the current system. The current system, the idea of 28 days. There's absolutely no medical science behind it. It was started back in the early 70s by the Air Force because they had a logistical problem. If airmen were away from their station for more than 4 weeks, more than 28 days, they had to be reassigned. So the Air Force just said, all right, then treatment is 28 days.
They run out of meal money after that, or what happens there?
Yeah, and they had a doctor who was part of the program who almost immediately repudiated it and said this is not, this is not appropriate. But the insurance companies, I think sensing that 28 days was a lot better than what they might have to pay for, jumped all over it, and it just became accepted as the standard. And there's no treatment experts, no doctors have said that you can get clean in 28 days. That's not a problem.
Yeah, Cris, that's absolutely right. In fact, in mental health, it's even worse. So in acute care psych, we've seen since the late 80s till now, the average length of stay in acute care lockdown psychiatric hospitals, we're talking about people who have just overdosed on drugs, schizophrenics, people with extreme mood disorders. The average length of stay is between 4 and 12 days, depending on your diagnosis. So what we really have is a systematic failure within society and government to pay for the care of the indigent and the mentally ill, which is mandated in every state constitution in the country, and yet we continue to just shuffle patients around and put them in prison.
And the biggest thing that you point out, and Jack wants to talk to you too, Jack Grisham, is that, and it's my mantra, is it's not a moral failure. We say this all the time here, and we're all about ending the stigma, and I think that's a big part of your suggestion or your hope, isn't it, Cris?
Yeah, absolutely, Pat. It's one of the big problems with addiction treatment is that it's not. There is this huge stigma attached to it. You made a choice. It was a bad choice. You should have to pay for your choice.
Well, I made my bad choices before I got into it. But go ahead.
Well, but what people who are not in addiction or who do not have loved ones in addiction don't realize is that, maybe your first time was a choice, possibly your second time also, but almost immediately
it's not.
Your brain gets hijacked, and it's no longer a choice at all. You're now in a position where the drugs control you, and you have to have them.
Yep.
So at that point, and it's not treated like a disease. You would not tell somebody that has diabetes, well, you made some bad choices, so, we shouldn't have to pay for this. We shouldn't have to pay for your treatment. You'd say, you have a disease, let's fix it. Let's put you on, and diabetes is a good example because like addiction, it's a chronic condition, you don't get cured. You get maintained. You get treated. But you always have to be aware of your disease.
I think a lot of people don't realize how frightening it is also. I mean, you think about Christmas. I go into this sometimes. People never look at a diabetic and say, hey, is he going to come here for Christmas dinner? How's his blood sugar? Has he got it maintained? But an addict, it's like, hey, is he getting loaded? We don't want him here.
Yeah, or cancer. Has he been to chemo this week? Right?
It's like, hey, we don't, is his tumor in remission? Because if it's in remission, he can come to dinner. But if not, he's staying the hell out. It's terrifying. Not just the doctors, the family, everybody.
Yeah, at the same point as a culture, we really haven't given parents and loved ones of addicts really good coping skills to deal with the problems of people with addiction. And it can be terrifying. I mean, when your kid's stealing from you or their mood isn't what you recognize them as being, the personality changes. These are difficult things to deal with, setting limits, being appropriate, not just continuing to give money to your child so they can keep killing themselves, but also having some sort of answer besides that, because giving up on your child is the worst thing you can do.
You bet. It's hard. Yeah. Well, my oldest daughter was involved. It was rough, man. And I'm 26 years clean, and when my daughter was doing it, I got the police showing up. I'm hunting her down at houses. It was gnarly. It was really rough. And some people don't realize in 26 years, I've lost maybe 5 or 6 friends to cancer in 26 years. Yeah. But in that same 26 years, I've lost a couple hundred friends to this illness, which a lot of people don't realize how powerful this is. And,
and
terrifying,
it's not just death. It's, losing part of your life and underperforming and not having the opportunities that you could have had if you could have gotten treated earlier.
Right.
So
addiction is or overdosing, and even the word overdose is really not appropriate. We can talk about that, but it's the leading cause of accidental death in this country. More people die from drugs, from heroin, meth, so forth, than from car accidents, from gun homicides. It's 120 people a day die.
Well, I like to repeat this story because it shows me how much ignorance there still is about accidents and drug-related accidents and death. But I was in the green room at CNN in New York, and I ran into Sanjay Gupta there, and he had just released his special on marijuana. I don't know if you remember that, about a year ago. And I asked him, you keep saying on the air on CNN, and I think irresponsibly, that nobody's ever died from marijuana use. And I go, did you look up accident data? And he said there's no evidence at all of any accident data because no one's ever done the studies at any state level. So it's not that I can say that anybody has. It's just that I can't say, because I don't have any evidence that it has. And now we're starting to see with Colorado and Oregon that everybody's getting this huge battle about what constitutes being intoxicated and what doesn't, which is a very complex question when it comes to drugs that aren't directly affect you in a certain period of time.
Cris Fiore is our guest, and I can hear that Philly in your voice, Cris. Are you an Eagles fan?
I am.
All
yes.
Right. So, and there's a point to that question is that when Andy Reid's son died tragically of, I believe it was heroin, I'm not sure, but he was just, when we talk about, and this to your point, if it's not a moral failure, he was just destroyed by a lot of people all over the country, not just the Eagles fans. I like Eagles fans, but people who not in the know were making fun of him because his son had died. I mean, did that strike anything inside you?
Yeah, it's a really it's a hard thing for when you're talking to people. I mean, ignorance is a fact a fact of life that we all face from time to time. But there's people that aren't dealing with it, that don't have loved ones in addiction or aren't in addiction themselves, really just simply don't understand that it's how hard it is. I often say that loving an addict is almost as hard as being one. And it's really, they're not the same person. You're not the same person when you have this demon controlling you and demanding that you do certain things to feed it, and you do things that you would never do. People that are not. My son stole. He robbed people. He lied, and none of these were things that he would ever do sober. But the drugs take over, and that's all that matters. And people look at that type of behavior and stigmatize the person as well. You're a thief. What do you expect? He's a robber.
Right.
And they don't understand that that's not the person. It's not their personality. It's the drugs.
And we've seen this throughout history, this vilification of both mentally ill and people with addictions, which I often think is the same thing. So, but we see this over and over again, especially with organized religion, where organized religion comes out and they say that these people are possessed by demons or whatever. And then we had the Age of Enlightenment, thank goodness, and people started to examine this stuff scientifically and found out that these are actually disorders. These aren't actually demons or whatever. So we still are stuck sort of in this old dialogue. People are still tied to some of these original religious doctrines that have been proven wrong by science, but they're very long-lasting belief systems that seem to be hard to conquer.
Cris, any final thoughts?
Well, I just we're trying to amend the Affordable Care Act. I encourage everybody listening to Google Anthony's Act. And
move.org.
MoveOn.org is where the petition is, and sign it. We're pushing Congress. We're trying to get some movement on this, and the more signatures we have on the petition, the more they're going to pay attention to it.
So it's MoveOn.org. And
MoveOn.org,
it's Anthony's Act, and I would suggest that everybody do that. I mean, first of all, even if you don't have a child in recovery who is in trouble, how do you know? And secondly, how about helping society? I mean,
everybody's kids and adults are all around you. We're a society. We're not separate from each other.
Right.
So, the idea, and we do have a duty as a civilized country and civilized society to be helping people that can't help themselves.
Doesn't seem too civilized the last couple of weeks. But, Cris, I love your passion. I'm sure wherever people go, Anthony is, I don't know, you never know, but I'm sure he's looking down on you and guiding your acts of kindness to the rest of us. So thank you so much for coming on, okay?
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you. It's Cris Fiore. Thanks, Cris. There's Cris, and it takes courage to talk about it as well, too. And if you don't talk about it, it's like my Jewish friends. They always talk about the Holocaust, and I love that because the old line: if you don't talk about it, it's going to happen again.
Right. And getting a taste, I think it's important too. Like until it's right in your home. I remember I made amends to my mom. That's part of the process. Went back and apologizing for what I did to her. And first time I made amends, great. It was great. And it was heartfelt and I care for her and all that. But it wasn't until my oldest started getting loaded. Then I went back to my mom and said, hey, no. Now I'm really sorry. I go, now I'm really sorry. And I remember I asked her, I said, how did you deal with it? And she said, sweetheart, I laid in bed at night and prayed that you wouldn't die.
Wow.
I mean, I just thought, geez, man, to put my mom through that, and just feeling that. So.
And on this Father's Day, I always say when I speak around that one of the great reasons to be sober is to make sure your kids don't worry about you anymore. My son, couldn't answer the phone. He thought every call was going to be Dad's dead. We come back. Sarah Gilbert, who's very much alive up in Seattle. She's our social media expert. Andrew Spanswick is here, who stole my Twitter account idea. And Jack Grisham is here. A lot more show ahead. Stay with us.
Don't let addiction to drugs or alcohol steal another year of your life. KLEAN Treatment Center provides world-class addiction assistance that also treats the underlying causes and provides vital aftercare so people can get clean and stay clean. Live, kind, professional help is standing by to provide immediate assistance or to simply answer questions and provide guidance. If you or someone you care about is suffering from addiction, take action now. Log on to cleantreatmentcenters.com. That's clean with a K.
Welcome back to KLEAN Radio. I'm Pat O'Brien here on a Sunday night. Happy Father's Day to everybody. A great show so far. Jack Grisham has stayed in, and Jack is we're going to get him back on the road. He says he's done touring TSOL, one of the great punk rock groups. Proliferation of music, right? God, how much?
Well, you live that long. That's what the deal is. It's 36 years of being together. Even if you put out a record every 2 years, that's still 17 records.
That's a lot. You got a book about recovery coming out.
Got a book, and just getting ready to film a movie with Susan Diner. She was the director of Punk's Not Dead, and getting ready to film first short film. So I'm a producer, moving into film.
And your book are you going to reveal everything in the book? Or just you're not going to know personal stories? Come on, we want to hear the story.
In the recovery book, it's broken down. Like a lot of it's just like it's 26 years of experience of being clean. So I just went through and just breaking down some of the steps, some of the things, and also some of the stuff that they hear that's like myths in recovery, like where they say, "Well, you need to do this, you need this, you need this." Like, well, wait a minute, no, you don't. That's not true, and it's not. So I break down like a lot of that stuff. And it's funny, some people get angry at me for it.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, hey, take it. Yeah. But they can't get too angry because I'm 26 years clean. And
right. When I read the traditions at meetings, I make fun of the last two.
Yeah.
Anonymity is the core of our sure.
Well, the one I find one of my favorites, though, if you really look at it, it's the only requirement to desire to, and a lot of people go
stop drinking,
desire to stop drinking, but what they don't realize when that came from, it was what was the political climate in America at the time, and at the time. Women weren't included, blacks weren't included. They had whites-only meetings, and that was the first place where they said, "Hey, look, no, we don't care what color, what race, what religion, what you do. You're welcome here." Which is really, if you look at that, it's really important.
Right. And the most important word I think in the whole that recovery program is the first word, we. And so you know that you're surrounded by people. We are a team here. We're KLEANRadio.com. Andrew Spanswick is here, wearing his Reagan Youth T-shirt tonight.
Yep.
I miss Reagan.
I did too. I love the guy.
One good thing, the FBI's not a big fan of me, but
I actually miss Nixon.
Hey, Nixon was a family friend of ours, so that's but that's a whole nother story.
Talk
My
about
Uncle
addictions.
Hoyt grew up in Yorba Linda together.
Oh, wow.
Like Nixon flew him out. Oh, yeah, they'd been friends since kids. Yeah.
God, I love people who come on here and drop names because that's all I do for a
drop
living.
that one.
I can
Jack
drop
Johnson,
that one.
Nixon.
I actually interviewed Richard Nixon once. You know what I said before the interview? I said for the editors, this is Richard Nixon. That's Nixo. It was funny. I thought it was funny. Sarah Gilbert's here. Hi, Sarah. How are you?
I am doing well. How are you? Happy Father's Day.
Thank you so much. And what do you got today on our social media schematic?
Gosh, well, we have an emotional show tonight, you guys. It's making me grateful to be able to call my dad and not have him worry about me anymore.
Good for you.
We've got Danny here, and he was I can really relate to his question. Young person getting sober. He asked, what would you recommend to an addict who's trying to get over this, so I'm assuming drugs, and deal with a non-supportive family?
Boy, I'll tell you, that's because it is a we program, no matter which program you're in, and you got everybody with their arms around you, right, Andrew? I mean, part of the deal is getting people on board.
Yeah, I mean, also the concept of family is changing more and more in our country, and it's, I understand that people ultimately want the approval and the support of the direct family, but sometimes those bridges can get burned temporarily, if not for a long time, and then it's time to reach out to other people, and there's plenty of people out there that have surrogate fathers and mothers and people that care of them as great friends, and so I'd encourage you to go out and find a supportive community of people that are willing to help you, and you might be surprised how many people you might find.
I heard this woman say something that was really great. She said, go where the love is, not where you want it to be.
That's good, really good.
Now, our next guest is going to talk about that. We're going to get to Tom Parks in a minute, who's, Lord, his daughter died just 2 months ago of a heroin overdose, and he's very public about, helping other people. And he talks about that it's a family, everybody's got to pitch in. Sarah?
The other thing I would quickly mention is that often if you are the addict and your parents have blown you off or are angry with you, it takes a lot for parents to deal with these kind of things, and they're coming often with the wrong information. So by setting the example of getting yourself sober, you'll be able to teach them what was going on and set another example, and there will be a chance to reconnect.
One more, Sarah?
Yeah, one more. This is from Allie. So this is one of our super loyal listeners. So hi, Allie. What would you recommend to families to encourage healthy communication when they're dealing with an addict? So kind of the other side of the coin.
Yeah. Once again, it's not something you should go ahead alone. there's something between stranger communication or friend communication and then family communication. And family communication tends to have a lot of baggage that goes with it. So when you bring up something like, I love you, well, that if you say that to a friend, it means something. If you say it to a family member, it has 20 or 30 years of baggage sometimes. So it's important to get someone else in there as well that can help translate what's being said, because a lot of these things are said over and over and over again within a family, and they don't mean anything anymore. They have to actually be further clarified. And the resentments that have to be dealt with and the problems have to be dealt with.
Sarah, what are all our passel of handles? Gaggle group.
Our group, okay, Facebook.com/Clean Radio. That's with a K. We're at Clean Radio on Twitter. And then we are going to resurrect our Instagram account. So if you're on there, Clean Radio is where you can find us.
All right, I'm actually
Excellent.
Dr. Pat O'Brien on there because I couldn't get my name, so I just put DR in front of it. Sarah Gilbert, thanks.
It's
Always
like Dr.
great.
Pepper.
I hope Lydia's not listening because Andrew's drinking a Dr. Pepper tonight.
No, I'm not. It's a Diet Coke.
My favorite.
All right, Sarah, thank you very much.
All right, have a good night. Thank you.
A couple months ago, April 16th, actually, the internet and Facebook blew up with a heartfelt letter written by a father whose daughter had just died. His daughter died, Molly, died of an overdose of heroin, and she died on April 16th, 2015, God love her. And I remember seeing it when it happened. And Tom Parks, who's joining us in about 10 seconds, and I shut up, said that, she looked great this morning, and then she died. Tom Parks joins us now on the first Father's Day without Molly. Hi, Tom. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Our sympathies, they always go out to people that have had close ones die. Jack Grisham is here, and he's had a lot of close people around him die, and we see it all the time. When this thing went out, first of all, your courage to even come out and talk, but your main thing is that, well, we've been talking about it. It's not her fault that it's a disease and all that. Were you surprised at all the... You got thousands of emails right away, right?
Well, not right away, but within 3 or 4 days, I received thousands of emails.
And you're sober 26 years. What was? Did you know that Molly had a problem?
Oh yeah.
Okay, and you tried to help as most good parents would.
Of course.
Okay, so is your message that the stigma? Well, what has happened in and around your life since this passing?
Well, I mean, we miss Molly. Still working, making a living just like I always did, And I still, I get a lot, emails not as often now, but still get them, and people asking questions, and I don't have answers, but I let them know that, if you have an addict in your life, that you should be loving them no matter what, because when they're gone, there's no more chances to help.
Mm. And people, celebrities, and they see these people in the news every day, or at least as long as the news can stretch those stories out. But everyday people, Andrew, I mean, we say that all the time, is that Molly, don't give up on the Mollys of the world.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing worse probably than losing a child, and I can't say because it hasn't happened to me, but, it's certainly a wake-up call to the fact that life isn't just about having issues, it's about resolving them, because you only get one shot at it, and, while people are around, and this is the tragedy of what we deal with daily is people dying, and how to get people to start taking this seriously, I don't know. I think talking about it's important, and I really commend Tom you going out there and really putting a lot of this energy into helping others and not just giving up, because it's a tough thing to do to pull yourself back up every day. Being reminded of a great loss and trying to convince people that about how serious it is and all the stigmas and stuff that you might have to deal with that. So I really commend you for that.
Thank you.
And Tom, excuse me, Jack. Tom, she was in and out of rehab as well, right? And then
she was.
Yeah, but was there any sense that she had finally gotten it? That she
it seemed like it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that she'd been in 3 in the last year, rehabs. The first 2 was basically for us, and I knew that too, And you have to do it for yourself. Yeah. And you know that.
Right.
And I thought the third time she'd actually found a place that was working for her. They wanted to let her out. It was the week before Halloween. She'd already done 28 days and detox, and then she'd spend another 30 days in transitional, and they wanted to let her out a couple of days before Halloween, and she asked if she could stay because she didn't think she'd be strong enough to, to not party with her friends at Halloween time. And so she stayed another week. I mean, she'd worked out a deal where she was going to pay for the time that she stayed after the 28 days that my insurance paid for, because she was on my insurance, but they didn't pay for transitional housing, just for the detox part.
Right.
But
So it
she
looked
worked out a deal to take care of that. It looked like she was interested, that
Right.
she was actually finally getting with the program and deciding that, it was time. And yes, it wasn't.
Yeah. Well, that's the same thing when my nephew. We lost my nephew. Who I was the closest with. He lived with me, and he had gone off and he'd relapsed. And then he called me. He said, "Hey, I just want to come back and get clean again. Can I come back to your house?" I said, "Yeah, come back." And I talked to his father about it, and I said, "Look, he needs help. This is an illness." And his father told me, he said, "He's not like you." And I'm like, "What do you mean he's not like me?" To try to get it through the family with that case. And he said he was coming back, and, his father found him a week later dead. So, I just breaks my heart listening to this.
Tom Parks with us. Tom, let's say, what was Molly like just on this Father's Day? I mean, for all accounts, she was very smart and she was starting to get it, and sounds like a lovely girl. Let's talk about Molly for a second. When she was Molly,
she was a good kid. Even when she was using, believe it or not, she was a good kid. She loved us. She called. She'd want to get together, have dinner, whatever. I mean, she'd be not using for her time, not, for the time that she'd be with us. She knew that we could tell, but she always was a member of the family. She always had input. She kept in close contact with her, her stepsister and her sister. I mean, they texted constantly.
She was in touch. That's
she wasn't out of touch. That's the whole thing. You know what I mean? She wasn't.
Tom,
it wasn't like you would think.
There's a lot of parents out there that might be listening right now, or in the future on the internet when they search for this. And from your experience, is there any advice you would give them if they're feeling hopeless?
We never gave up on her, and you shouldn't give up. That's the message: is you can't give up on your loved one. You gotta have their back. I know a lot of people that and I know they're afraid that they're going to get cleaned out, their houses stolen from, and I understand that. All you can do is, keep an eye on them when they're at your house, but you can't say, "Get out, stay away from me, get out of my life." I had more of Molly's friends come to me at her funeral and say, "I wish that I kept in touch with her because I didn't, because she had a problem."
That's what I learned, to be a safe place for people to come to. Yeah. To never get down on them, yell at them, scream, and be a safe place. So when they're hurting, when something's going on, they don't worry about coming back to you.
And that doesn't mean not set limits, right?
Of course.
That means still being a parent and being responsible. But
you don't have to enable someone to be enabling.
Right. And a lot of people,
you don't have to enable them to use drugs, but you have to enable them to try to get off of drugs.
And I think a lot of people confuse the two. They don't understand that love and trying to offer help is not enabling. That's enabling them to get better. There's different kinds of enabling.
Right.
Absolutely. And I mean, sometimes people say, "Well, you're enabling her." Like how? By paying for her car insurance?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Well, people will find all kinds of reasons to hate and disagree. Tom Parks, tough day. Father's Day for you, but I'm sure every day is, so let's not make it, just on the holidays. You made me cry about 5 minutes ago, and you said she loved this. Man, is that the deal? Tom, God love you, God love Molly, and thanks for coming on. And you said you wanted to save lives. I think you just did, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
There he goes.
It's a tough,
I'm blown away by that.
That's a tough call to.
It's a tough call to make on Father's Day. Plus, it's not like I guess it wouldn't matter. I don't want to be insensitive, but she's only passed 2 months ago, and the wounds are still very open, Andrew.
I don't think it's something you really ever recover from. I think it's something that you just find a place for, and death is a tough thing, and our culture isn't very good at dealing with it. And some of the horrible things people say about drug addicts casually, sometimes they don't know who's in the audience or who's listening, and it can be very hurtful for people that have lost people to unfortunate circumstances.
Yeah, don't get me started. The whole idea of making fun of an alcoholic or a drug addict or somebody who's mentally ill, sports talk radio makes a a game of all that.
Right.
And talk radio does in the mornings. You listen to any morning show, and they shouldn't do that. And they're starting to change a little bit, but it's been kind of the mantra of a lot of old style radio people to it's a joke. It's a punchline.
We have my wife's sister died of a drug overdose, and we have her baby clothes in our hallway, like in a frame. But I was going to say, on a lighter note, when I realized my mother knew, going back to that kid.
Better be pretty light after that.
Yeah, well, when I realized my mother knew that I was really clean, really sober, I went to visit her one day and I saw her purse sitting on the table. And I had never seen that item unattended.
Wow.
Because normally she'd have it over her shoulder. I go, where are you going? She goes, I'm just going to the bathroom. I almost ripped her off just for old time's sake. But that's when I realized she knew that I was clean.
Right.
And that it was over.
So some recovery program.
That's an important lesson for people that are active in addiction, is that you can regain trust. It's something that can happen, but don't expect to just get it back right away.
No.
It's something that you have to earn. And it's an unfortunate part of the illness. And I hate to stigmatize people that are addicts with the fact that they have to regain trust, but that is part of the social aspect of the illness that just has to be worked on.
I knew my family was not on the 1 day at a time program. They'd had enough of my 1 day, and they wanted long-term results, baby.
I was speaking at a meeting. By the way, if you think somebody in your family has a problem, or you do actually, our hotline number, it's not a hotline, it's a treatment center number, but it's open 24/7, which makes it a hotline. Good, bad. 888-601-6040, 888-601-6040. I spoke at a meeting in Santa Monica Friday night, and at some recovery meetings, when you share, they have a timer that goes off after 2 minutes or 3 minutes, and this timer was a doorbell. Like bing, and I said at the time, does this have a trigger for anybody? That your dealers arrived, and they all raised their hands. So I made them change the noise. I once said to my cocaine dealer, "You're irresponsible." Are you kidding me? But Andrew, we can't stress this family deal enough, and to have at clean centers, I know that. We try to teach that it's a village. It takes a village to get you sober and to keep you sober.
And family to me is about not just family or direct family. That can be obviously very important, but we're all in this together. And if you're a citizen of the United States, you have a responsibility to take care of these people. It's part of being a citizen of this country. And if you don't believe me, read the state constitutions. And it's time to really start doing something about this instead of just paying lip service to it. I remember when I first got into the field. The reason that I went into this field was because I thought, who is the most vilified and hated group in America at this time that have no voice? And for me, it was people with mental illness. And, things have changed a little bit, but not that much. We've gone from huge amounts of homeless mentally ill, which we still have, but a lot of them have been rounded up and stuck in little cells in prisons. And we've completely deinstitutionalized the country, so there's no long-term care. And we pay lip service to health insurance for substance abuse. So, and I think in a lot of ways, a lot of the divisiveness between different treatment methods and different treatment centers, all of whom should be on the same side of the table, supporting and encouraging people to get better, are being, split and separated by arguments by people that don't want to pay for this stuff.
Right.
And, healthcare is something that is not a right in our country, unless you're in prison, ironically, and then it is a right because the Supreme Court says if someone's in the government's custody, then we have to pay for their health care.
That's a good point, actually.
Right?
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, if you're pouring on food stamps, you don't get health care, but if you commit a felony, you can, and we see that. We see a lot of people actually committing felonies so that they can try to get health care. And not that I recommend that, because health care in prison is awful if you've ever been in one and experienced
I'll pass on that.
Well, I've been to forensic prisons, and trust me, they're not somewhere anybody should be treated. They're just horrible. And, it's just a shame what's going on. And something's got to change. And shows like this where people actually can see the effects that happen on all sorts of people from all different backgrounds, and realize that something really needs to change, and that there is hope. That this is something that we can really ease the suffering of a lot of people for, not just simple problems, but complex problems as well. And science has done an incredible job through psychopharmacology to create better medicines all the time, and we're working on better treatment models. And I'm not saying we're perfect at it, but we're getting better. And with support from the government and by the populace, it's something that we can conquer, or at least contain and control and help with, instead of just trying to ignore it and pretend like it's not a problem.
Once again, cleancenters.com or cleanradio.com. It's I'd go to the center one. All the information is there. The hotline number, the treatment center numbers are 888-601-6040. And log on tonight. Send me a tweet at CleanPOB. I'm begging for
He's begging for that to be his new handle.
Well, no, I'd just like to see a few of you on there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll send you one.
Yeah, I'll send you one too.
By the way, it's not going to say a lot for us if I don't get a lot of. Jack, how many people? We got a couple minutes left. How many people? And thanks for coming on and being so honest with us. How many people do you know in your business? By that I mean that horrid rock and roll business. You laddies,
yes,
have gotten sober, and just it seems to me in my world there are more sober than not.
Right, and they're more and more. I think the one thing, real quick, getting clean for being an addict or alcoholic, getting clean is bad news. Like for me, it was bad news because now I'm just left with trouble. It's just, hey, I'm not sedated anymore. But what's bitching is when you see these guys, they get clean, and then all of a sudden they do something that gives them the same feeling that they used to get when they were getting loaded.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh my God, I feel connected, I feel close, I feel open, I feel this. When they realize that they can get that same result by doing
loving
music,
and forgiving
loving,
and music,
community, whatever it is, just that moment, when they catch that moment, then you watch these guys spark up and really change. And that's what happened to me when I first got that taste of, hey, this is bitchin'.
Believe it or not, there's better solutions than alcohol.
Yes, much better.
Jack Grisham, thanks. You were great, man.
You're welcome. Thanks
Dude,
for having me.
You were great. Thanks for coming in on Father's Day, and we love having you. We can have you back, all right? And
thanks, Jack.
And if we send you a check, which we won't, it'll be to you.
not
we
to
won't
Jack
ask
Johnson.
for it back.
Andrew, I'll see you. I'll see you doing the work, Andrew. Thanks, pal.
Thanks, Pat.
Good job again tonight. William Shakespeare had a great line about being a dad. He said, "When a father gives to his son, both laugh. When a son gives to his father, both cry." And it's better to be together when you're sober and you're not worrying your kids. Stay sober another week. Stay with us, and we'll see you next week. Have a good week.
Don't let addiction to drugs or alcohol steal another year of your life. KLEAN Treatment Center provides world-class addiction assistance that also treats the underlying causes and provides vital aftercare so people can get clean and stay clean. Live, kind, professional help is standing by to provide immediate assistance or to simply answer questions and provide guidance. If you or someone you care about is suffering from addiction, take action now. Log on to cleantreatmentcenters.com. That's clean with a K.